that?
So that can you let go now, right?
Yeah, you can let go. It's,
Is it a lot bigger this time?
yeah. What? Not bad. Like that?
Yeah.
Helps to have enough room, but I'll get it. Hold your piece, nice and firm.
Yeah.
Alright? Same thing. You push right there. Your one hand you push with this one. Ready?
Yep.
There's one. Grab another one. Hold on, wait for that. Okay. Goes first in. Very good.
Yep.
Take your one hand back here,
Yep.
hold it down and pull it in.
Yep.
Keep this hand away from the blade.
Like that?
If you go too far, the blade's going to come out right there. We don't want that, all right?
Yep. Is that why it's marked like that?
Yep. Like that. Okay. Hold on. Cut the claw. Wait. You're going to grab for that and pull it back farther.
All right.
Okay?
Beautiful.
So, if you're gonna do it like I'm doing it, please be careful. Freehanding on a table saw is not the smartest thing in the world to do. And sometimes I just like to do dumb shit to see what happens in the comments sections. I know it's petty and small-minded, but that's just me. Let's see. The other precaution I could tell you working with black walnut's a pretty toxic wood. A lot of tannin in it. And it really can mess with your respiratory system. It's a really good idea to wear a respirator while you're doing it. I should have been wearing one ripping it on the table saw earlier. But me being me, boy, even a little bit of that stuff gets in you and you can feel it. Kind of burns your throat a little bit. Just noise, isn't it? That's a little better. I manage to make myself look clumsy sometimes. The simplest of tasks. This is kind of my bastardized version of a shaker style cabinet. What I've always liked about shaker style furniture is it's always been a very simple designs, yet real elegant. The Shakers definitely didn't believe in fancy for a lot of stuff. Okay. There. Let's get her all nice and pretty for the camera. So that's what she looks like before all the stain and all that good stuff. You know, I didn't know how I was going to like that black cherry against the walnut. But you know, once that stain's applied on the cherry, boy, that is really pretty. And it's going to make for a very dark piece of furniture, but that's okay. We don't mind that. I hope the review was good, but what we're working on tonight is going to be the drawers for these. Now we have most of the face frames done. I've got to put a few of them left to put together, stain, all that good stuff. But I want to get the drawers in, or at least get the drawers built, the boxes built. With any of a big furniture project like this, it's almost like drywalling. You get to a certain point, you get it to where you can stain and poly and all that stuff, then you're waiting a good 24 hours and then some, depending on the humidity and the temperature and things of that nature in your shop. So there's always little things that hold you up. So what I like to do, when I get to a point on one part where I can get a bunch stained and polyed and I can get it in the other room where the dust isn't flying to dry, that leaves me free to work on the other stuff. Nice thing about doing a big project, if you have a lot of the same drawers, you can plan out your cuts. And right now at $76 a sheet is what this 1/2 inch birch plywood cost me. You don't want waste. You get a bunch of waste and you're throwing your money out the window. It's like anything else right now. Things are just expensive and it's getting harder for people to do projects, myself included. So you get the most out of what you can do. And part of that is planning every cut. When you get your 4x8 sheet of plywood, you get all your measurements together. I find what helps me when it comes to this kind of thing, I'll do a little sketch on the workbench. You know, doodle on there my measurements, my box measurements, get everything figured out. Then I can transfer those measurements onto the sheet of plywood and I can plan out how to best plan my cuts. And let me explain that. Right here we have 6 drawer bottoms. I only need 4 more, but these 6 drawer bottoms and these 2 7-inch wide strips came out of 1 sheet of plywood. Now what I like to do is I just like to plan it all out. I'll take my time really looking it over and get a plan going in my head. Now I know that for my smaller drawers, the 4 top drawers, the opening's 8 by 33. So with the drawer slides, I need the drawer dimensions, final dimensions, need to be 32 by like 7 1/8 roughly, so I just rounded it down to 7 inches. So we have this one strip here, this 8-foot long strip. That'll get me 1 drawer the size of one of them. There's the sides of another one. Now with the dimensions we have, the actual drawer bottom, or the drawer, it's going to end up being 32 inches by 16 inches deep. That works out perfect on an 8-foot sheet of plywood. These drawer panels, the bottoms, they're actually going to be 15.5 inches is what they're going to end up with. But if I lay these back on here the way I cut them out, you can see exactly how we got to where we are. So there you have it. There's one full sheet with about 1.5 inch strip missing out of here. That's what we were left over with. So that's a short, very short amount of waste. Now obviously I have to trim a couple inches off of all of these, but honestly, that's not a lot of waste. One of the biggest mistakes you can make when you're making cabinets is wasting material. I cover that a lot opening up in here because it is a big deal. Like I said, the price of everything, it's outrageous. It's crazy right now. Everything is super expensive and it's going to keep getting expensive. This stuff is not getting cheaper anytime soon for a long time to come. So you plan them out. If you're building, if you know you have a bunch of drawers, we have 10 drawers to make for this dresser. If you know you're building 10 drawers, take your sheet of plywood, cut as many pieces out of that one sheet as you can get. Even if you have to take, I found when I was starting out, if I took big pieces of cardboard, cut them to the same sizes of the lumber that I wanted, it's real easy to set that on your sheet of plywood to get a visual and really plan out your cuts. So I know the first thing I'm going to be doing is ripping those 7-inch strips with the table saw lengthwise off of the 8-foot length of the sheet of plywood. And then the next thing I know, I'm going to start doing some cross-cutting. I'm going to show you my redneck poor man crosscut setup with the circular saw. Does a good job, so stay tuned. Now we want to cut our panel bottoms, our drawer bottoms, but you're going to see a lot of guys out there that have the fancy track saws, stuff like that. I don't own one. It'd be nice if I did, but I don't need it. And they are nice, believe me, they're beautiful. But I have a couple things that I do. We're going to do this with a circular saw. And I like to take a piece of scrap. This is 3/4 inch cabinet ply or birch plywood. It's got a nice banana to it, and I actually like that. And there's a reason, I'll show you why, that I like it like that. So what I do this with my circular saw. I already have my measurements laid out. So we've got to go 17 1/8. And I know this is kind of a no-no to some people, is hooking and measuring from there. The way I figure it, as long as I do everything the same, it's going to come out the same, and that usually is the way it works. But also, I've made these so I've got to trim a little bit off of them just so I know I get them perfectly square. When you're dealing with something with drawer slides, you want everything perfectly square to the best of your ability, because any kind of, it's a tight tolerance when you're dealing with drawer slides, and if things aren't quite right, it can be a pain to deal with. So when I take my banana piece, I want it so the curve is pointed up. I don't want it bowed up in the middle, because if I go to clamp that on each end, my circular saw is going to ride. It's going to go underneath that banana, that crown there. So I put them up like this. I'll leave my tail sticking out past a little bit. And the reason I do that is so when I start my cut, I've got a nice square, nice straight edge to go against. Now this is going to be blasphemy for some of you professionals out there, but I don't claim to be a professional, just another weekend warrior guy, but I have done a pile of this kind of thing. Now all I do when I clamp these down, I want to just see my pencil line, just barely see it. But what we're going to do, rather than trust that I measured everything exactly right, I'm going to test it with the square. And we're perfect on there, because you have a tendency once in a while, your line might be, you might have measured one side of the mark to the other, so just double check yourself with a square on there, and that'll show that you're getting everything right where you need it. The part I like is when we actually get to break all this stuff down, finalize it, and start dadoing and all that stuff. I love that. The table saw is like a miracle tool for your shop. I love it. This thing is an old Delta contractor saw. It's not like it's some high-end cabinet saw, but boy, it does a nice job, but that's if you take the time to tune it up. Anyway, moving along, keeping things flowing. We have all of our drawer bottoms. We have all of our 7-inch deep drawers. We have our 9-inch deep drawers between this bottom layer here and over here. What you see here, this is 3 sheets of cabinet plywood. And when we're done with this, I'm going to show you how little waste we have on it. And also, I want to show you guys the difference between a quality veneer plywood and a shit quality veneer plywood. Pardon the French, but that's just the best way to describe it. So we're going to do all this on the crosscut sled. We're going to get everything trimmed down to length. That way we can get it all exact. Crosscut sled is amazing for this kind of thing. So keep watching. Out of 3 sheets of 1/2-inch cabinet grade plywood, this is what we have for waste. These bits right here. Now they're not really going to be waste because I made everything. We have we're going to need 1-inch cleats all throughout the inside of that to fix our drawer slides too, things of that nature. So most of this is going to end up getting used up. Obviously pieces like this are pretty much useless to us now. Even those will be useful, but most of this will get used up. So I'm pretty happy with that, because if you don't plan those cuts out, boy, you waste a lot of material. And don't ask me how I know, but I can tell you, it took me a lot of years doing this stuff to realize, gee, you're throwing money out the window. And we're beyond that now. Now I thought we would do a little bit of a public service announcement here. So this plywood, you see, if we can get her to focus, come on. This plywood here is the more expensive stuff that I picked up at my local lumber yard. And this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers in this if you count the veneer layers. This stuff right here, the cheap crap from Home Depot and Blows, that only has 3 layers and your 2 veneer layers. And the veneer is so thin you can hardly see it on the edge of that piece of plywood. This is what Lowe's and Home Depot is selling as cabinet grade plywood, and they're charging premium prices for it. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's one more reason to support your local your local lumber yard when you can. The veneer layers on these are quite thick. They're about 1/16 of an inch thick. That's excellent. And I can tell you with this stuff, I don't get the voids that I get in this stuff. Now, if you're missing one of these 1/8 inch thick layers, that's a big deal when you're working on stuff. Big deal. I'll never buy this garbage again. So when I do these screws, the only spot I have to put my pocket screws in these narrow guys right here. Obviously, you got to make sure you get it on the right side. Don't ask me how I've learned that lesson over the years. Nothing like putting a ton of time into something and realize you put your pocket holes in the wrong side of your work. Boy, that'll drive you nuts. So if you're doing these drawers out of 1/2 inch material, or very close to 1/2 inch, because we know cabinet plywood these days is not quite the full 1/2 inch, cheap bastards. You're going to need the 1-inch coarse thread screws for the plywood. Now if everything goes right, they should not poke through anywhere. That's the whole idea of this system. Now I don't want a ton of glue in these because I don't want a ton of glue squeeze out. Because it's very hard to clean it. Let's see, there's the nice side. It's hard to clean it out of the corner of the drawers. The only warning I'll give you with these Craig screws, if you have the corner clamps, they work really nice. Because sometimes these will tend to want to walk on you a little bit. Now, something I like to do just to check myself. Right on. Oh, I like it. So the problem is if you don't get this stuff square when you build it, it's perfect. If you don't get it square when you build it, it can get really wonky on you. And when you go to put your drawer slides in, it can be a real pain. We want to try to avoid that stuff. I'll have to be a little more careful to glue on the next one, but you guys get the idea. There she is. Only 9 more to put together. I was dying to see what the drawer face would look like on it. That's pretty nice. I love black cherry stained against that black walnut. Absolutely beautiful. That'll make the wife happy. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this one, and I tell you what, it's really nice to get back to this project. We took quite a bit of time away from it. Remember when we were right in the middle of this, it was time to get the sawmill trailer built so we could go start getting after logs and getting boards cut, which have been coming in handy on the house projects. But it feels good to get back to it. I'll tell you what, even with milling all the hardwood pieces, so I milled the walnut, I milled the cherry, but this thing's still going to run me about $500 to build because of the cabinet plywood and the drawer slides. Now, I only got the $6 drawer slides but I've had really good luck over the years with those. They're not soft closers or anything fancy like that. Even for a low-end soft closer, you're going to pay 27, 28 bucks a pair. They're worth it though in your kitchen cabinets, but for a dresser, I'm not as worried about it. I know who's going to be operating, and it's going to be the boss lady and I. So anyway, I will catch you guys on the next one.